Thank you for staying tuned. Tonight you're focusing on tobacco control. We are having the National Taxpayers Association to, of course, digress some of these matters. We are having Ms. Francisca Marabo to help us look at what the government is doing so far, given that the World Health Organization say 7 million people die annually due to tobacco use, with more than 800,000 being second-hand smokers. Welcome, Ms. Marabo.
Okay, thanks for having me on the show.
All right. So first of all, looking at the progress the government is doing so far to curb tobacco abuse or tobacco product abuse, which includes cigarettes, do you think the issue of increasing taxes to curb the spread or to curb the use of cigarettes has really been effective so far?
Yeah, according to research done by WHO, they say the most best way of reducing consumption of tobacco cigarettes is increasing excise tax on cigarettes. So tax and price measures are mentioned to be the best way of reducing tobacco consumption throughout the world. So as far as Kenya is concerned, right now Kenya is at 58% of excise taxes applied to tobacco products. That is of the retail selling price. But WHO recommends that the country should be able to move up to 70% of retail selling price. And when we reach that 70%, there'll be a lot of reduction in tobacco consumption.
All right.
So Kenya, we still have a long way to go as Kenya, because right now we are only at 58%. And in this financial year, through the Finance Act, there was no increase of tobacco taxes or excise duty applicable to cigarettes.
Now, looking at the excise duty since 2015 up to now, we're talking about 2020. Are we seeing the government, of course, creating more revenue and curbing the use of tobacco products using the excise duty? Because some have said that the increase of excise duty has not really helped to curb the use of cigarettes in the country.
Mm. Yeah, we can say that Kenya has actually had a very complex excise tax system for tobacco products, because there have been always a mix of excise duty. Sometimes since 1993 to 2017, they have been the country or Kenyan government has been applying different type of excise taxes. Sometimes they would apply ad valorem taxes. Sometimes they apply specific taxes. And right now, what the government is applying is a two-tier specific taxes. So that change in taxes has made the collection of excise duty related to cigarettes to be a bit unstable. So what the government needs to undertake or needs to apply is to apply a specific excise taxes for all types of cigarettes, whether they are plain cigarettes or cigarettes without filters. And that is why maybe you have not made so much efforts in reducing tobacco consumption using tax and price measures, because of changes in the excise duty applicable to cigarettes or applicable to tobacco products.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, some have complained that what the Kenya Revenue Authority is doing so far in terms of collecting the revenue from, of course, taxing tobacco products is not used to help in tobacco control, in terms of creating awareness, in terms of helping those who have, gone to rehabs due to the use of tobacco products. Has this been a complaint that the National Taxpayers Association has, of course, created a concern about, to sort of try and lobby the government to use some of this revenue taken from the tobacco products to be used in tobacco control in the country?
Ideally, remember last year in 2019, the there was a court case where the tobacco industry was trying to mention that the tobacco control regulations, which came up or which were developed by Kenya in 2014, they did mention that those tobacco control regulations were unconstitutional, because some of the things that were being mentioned or that were being that they wanted it to be implemented in the tobacco control regulations is for the tobacco industries to contribute 2%, so that the 2% can be used for the solar. It's actually called the Solatium Fund, so that the 2% can be used to sensitize the public about the effects of tobacco, consuming tobacco products or cigarettes per se. And also that money to be channeled into the health budget so that it can help in even curbing diseases which are caused by use of tobacco products. Mm-hmm. So I think there was that challenge in court, but it was upheld by the Supreme Court, and therefore it was a win. The government won that particular court case, and therefore the industries loosed, and therefore they are supposed to contribute 2% as solatium fee, so that it can cater for such like cases of NCDs, mm-hmm. and to create awareness on the effects of these tobacco products.
All right. Have we seen the industry sort of do what the court order, implement the court order that was given to have that solatium fund being used to help in the tobacco control? Have we seen some of this company agree with that particular court order?
I mean, it was a long battle in the court, and therefore at the end of it all, they lost it, because the Supreme Court said this one should be implemented, and therefore they're supposed to contribute the 2% solatium fee. And that is why I've said it was the government won that particular case.
Mm. All right, Ms. Francisca, we have had cases of Kenyans complaining and non-governmental organization complaining that there are many loopholes in terms of ensuring that the tobacco companies pay the taxes required, due to one, they find them finding loopholes to evade the taxes, to remit the taxes. Two, the illicit trade of tobaccos. This particular concern, are we foreseeing a way that what the government is doing to ensure the companies, one, remit taxes, and we deal with illicit trade, given that it is quite a dragon when it comes to tobacco use in the country?
Yeah, you remember, yes, last year, or early this year, actually, the government did sign the illicit trade protocol to curb some of these tobacco products that come into the country. And therefore, I think with the signing of the illicit trade protocol, then I think it will be able to take care of some of those loopholes used by the tobacco control companies.
There has been complaints about the choice concerning between uniform and differential sort of tax system, whereby we see some brands of cigarette are being taxed more, while others are being taxed less, which has been a complaint that there should be a uniform way of taxing these particular cigarettes. As NTA, the National Taxpayers Association, is that a concern for you, or do you think it might in any way help to ensure that we curb the use of tobacco in the country?
Kenya right now applies 2-tier specific taxes to tobacco products or to cigarettes, and that what means is that they are charged differently. The cigarettes without filters are charged 2,500 per milli, that is per 1,000 cigarettes, and then the cigarettes without filters are charged 1,800. And therefore, you'd find that Kenya still applies 2-tier specific rate of those of cigarettes with filters and cigarettes without filters. And therefore, what This means, therefore, that you'd find that some brands are a bit cheaper and some brands are a bit expensive. So the brands that are a bit cheaper then makes it easier for them, for the smokers to purchase them. And therefore, what we recommend as National Taxpayers Association is to have a single tier structure or a uniform tax structure for this particular type of cigarettes, so that there's no shifting to cheaper brands by these particular smokers, because it becomes affordable. But when we have one single rate for these cigarettes, then we're gonna have them being expensive, and therefore the smokers will not be able to shift to any cheaper brand, because we only have one rate or one flat rate for all these particular kind of cigarettes. So we are advocating for uniform specific rate for all these particular kind of cigarettes, so that to avoid smokers from shifting to cheaper cigarettes. And it will also lead to reduction of the number of smokers, because the prices of these cigarettes will be a bit higher. And this also will mean there will be increase in excise revenue collected by the government, because of the higher rate of these particular cigarettes. And also having a uniform flat rate or specific rates for all these kind of cigarettes will also, it will be easier to administer, other than having other cigarettes being charged differently, and other cigarettes are charged differently. That is those without filters and those without filters. Yeah.
All right. Now, finally, you've talked about advocating, and I would want you to come out, of course, recommend to the National Treasury. What are some of the recommendations to the National Treasury in terms of the existing taxes right now, looking at the excise duty of 2020, and of course, what the CS for Treasury, CS Ukuru Attorney, of course, presented in Parliament, in particular the National Assembly. What could be your recommendation in what is happening so far?
Yeah, my main recommendation to Treasury is actually to have a uniform specific excise tax for all types of cigarettes, those without filters and those with filters. And this is the best practice in tobacco control. That is the best practice that has been recommended by WHO FCTC framework. Because as I've mentioned earlier, we have a uniform specific excise tax for cigarettes with filters and those without filters, then will increase on revenue and will also lower consumption of cigarettes because of the higher prices. I mean, smokers will not be able to switch or to shift to any other cheaper brands. And therefore, this is going to be a win-win situation for the government, because they're going to collect enough revenue from these excise taxes applicable to cigarettes. And it's also going to improve the public health, because if we are going to reduce the number of smokers because of the higher prices, then we are going to achieve a public health. And therefore, at the end of it all, we'll be contributing to Sustainable Development Target 3A, which leads to strengthening of the county level implementation of WHO FCTC framework. Yeah.
All right. So, as the National Taxpayers Association, I saw a study report that you've done in collaboration with another organization looking into the tobacco control, or what are the steps that you're doing so far. So, as an organization, what are you doing, of course, to help in tobacco control abuse so far, even during this time of the pandemic, that tobacco has been termed as a risk as it is? What are some of the steps? What are some of the steps you have taken? Some of the advocacy measures and creating awareness that you have done?
Yeah. So, as the National Taxpayers Association, what we have done so far, you can see from the research done in China. There was a small research that was done in China on relations between COVID-19 and tobacco smoking. So it has shown that those people who are really smoking cigarettes, they are at high risk of contracting COVID-19, because and when you contract COVID-19 and you're a smoker, then you're at high risk because of it affects the lungs. You remember when you're taking cigarettes, it also contributes to other diseases like high blood pressure, and it also contributes to to most of these non-communicable diseases, which are the people who are suffering from these non-communicable diseases are at high risk of dying because of if they contract COVID-19 and they have these by taking or smoking cigarettes, then they're at high risk. We have been having radio talk shows on local radio stations just to sensitize the general public on the effects of COVID-19, especially for people who are smoking cigarettes. And for those again who use shisha, I remember the shisha smokers, because they're using that shisha tube, then if you are sharing it with the rest of the shisha smokers, then you are at high risk of contracting COVID-19 if you happen to use a shisha tube that somebody else has used and has contracted maybe COVID-19.
So it is really a step there, and it is a progress of what you're doing so far in terms of creating awareness, in terms of lobbying the national government to do more in terms of taxing these tobacco products. Of course, it is really a step towards the right direction. Thank you so much, Ms. Francisca Marabo, for making time and, of course, giving us an insight on what the government is doing and what you're doing to keep the government in check when it comes to this particular issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
That has been Ms. Francisca Marabo, of course, giving us an insight on what has been done so far to control tobacco abuse, given that it is related to COVID-19 pandemic, given that it causes majority of respiratory diseases and therefore puts one at risk of succumbing to the pandemic. We are taking a short break, but we'll be back with more. Do stay tuned.